So I'm someone who questions everything. I don't just take for granted that, oh, some person at some time decided this was this, wrote it down in a book. Now, whether that happened 20 years ago or 4,000 years ago, I don't just take it for granted. Because let's just have a look at something here. Yoga. The yoga poses. They were developed by people, right? Yet, and the mudras as well. Yet, when you've done enough Shakitpat, Kundalini activation, and you see people who have never done yoga and have never used mudras and don't know what they mean, when you've seen enough of them do the original asanas and the main mudras without having any knowledge of them, and they can even do the poses absolutely perfectly, because yes, I am also a yoga teacher, and they do them spontaneously, like spontaneous kriyas. And kriya is basically effortless action. So you are doing it effortlessly, meaning just as Wu Wei, meaning you are not trying to do the pose, but you do it, or your fingers just go into those positions anyway. When you see them enough, you can start to understand that the original mudras and the original yoga poses perhaps were not formed by people. They were created thousands of years ago by people observing these phenomena over and over and over again and saying, well, if they do these poses and these mudras and they make these sounds, mantras, during receiving energy, therefore, if they do these postures, they will be able to connect to their own energy. A good hypothesis. And so perhaps you might find the poses of yoga were actually formed this way. The same with the mantras, the same with the mudras. And so everything they say about how it was created is actually incorrect. And so here I want to talk about sacred sexual energy. Because you will hear so much about what sacred sexual energy is, and even what Jing is in Taoism. Now in Taoism, they say Jing, women, it's in the ovaries, and men, it's in the testes. And over the years, obviously, this decreases. Now that's a very good general idea. But then one has to ask, if this is the case, why are there some people, not everyone, but why are there some people that as they get older, they become more attractive, they have more sexual appeal? And we all know who we're talking about. It could be those famous actors and actresses that the older they get, they just grow in this energy, and it is a sexual energy about them. Therefore, it can't necessarily be true that that's where this Jing comes from, or at least the only place they come from. You can find many, especially female tantrikas, that the older they get, 60, 70, they still have this very sexual energy around them. Which, if you go by the Taoist principle, after menopause, wouldn't be the case, would it? So where does sacred sexual energy come from? Because, yes, I've said it, and I do say the normal thing, it's created in your sexual organs. It's created by arousal, it's created by the testes, it's created by the ovaries. But the deeper you dive, and this is why I like to say I don't have all the answers, I ask questions. And through testing and through observing and through experience, I can reach possible conclusions. One could call that empirical evidence. And when other people test it and reach the same result, if enough people do that, we could call that scientific. Okay, it's not double-blind because it's impossible to be a double-blind. But there's still something to that method of soft science, we could call it. So here's a hypothesis for you, and you might wish to actually try this. We know that the Jing, or the sacred sexual energy, yes, is increased by sexual arousal, is increased by certain exercises. But the exercises, it's very funny. The physical exercises, so the yoni egg, all the exercises, for example, like Mantak Chaya teaches for men and women. Whilst they're working on the physical body and on physical sensations and muscular strength, and they're also working outside the physical. And obviously this area is the area of the lower dantian. It's also, okay, we can say the root chakra is in the coccyx, yes. Some people say the root chakra is in the perineum. And some people say the root chakra is actually just below, sort of like the anus area. Now, whilst I would not say that is the root chakra, I would definitely agree, is in the coccyx. There is definitely another chakra. Now we can call this the Earth Star chakra or many names, but there is definitely a very sensitive energetic area just below the physical body. If you think men testes, where they are, that is a very sensitive area, and not just the physical genitals themselves, the whole area below the anus, within the etheric body. And the more this area is open and flowing, and this is why we tense or pump the perineum to get chi flowing in that area. So the more this area is open and the more sensitive this area outside the external body becomes, and the more the chi is flowing in this particular area, the more sacred sexual energy, the more of that tantric energy you naturally flows. So whilst it is the sexual energy it turns into the sexual energy being filtered through the genitals. I always say prana, as in big prana with a big P, whereas in a little p, the universal force, because it is universal. And don't think universal as in the universe, think of it universal as in valid for everything. It's like white light passing through a prism. And when you pass white light through a prism, you get different colors. Forget the colors of the rainbow. We're not talking about colors of the rainbow. We don't need that nonsense like with the chakras. It's just to say it splits into different frequencies through the prism, or the prism splits the frequencies. So if you have this area and the prana is flowing very strongly there, as it enters the body, it gets split into what will be, once awakened, the Kundalini energy, which could in fact be the non-splitting of that energy, and it is that full energy flowing up the spine, which would just make so much sense for so many reasons. But then you have the energy that is pulled in through the perineum. You have the energy that passes to the sacred, to the genitals, forming what we call the sacred sexual energy. So perhaps, forgetting all the texts, this is purely something to experiment with. By concentrating and focusing your awareness to the area just below your genitals for women, or perhaps just behind your genitals for men, and going a couple of inches downwards, and it goes as far back as about the back of the leg, so from the front of the leg to the back of the leg, that area. By concentrating your awareness there and opening up this exterior chakra, all the energies seem to flow more. And you'll find the more you do it, the more your mood lightens. This has a direct effect or implication on mood, on emotion, on experience. The one that classical Tantra talks about. You'll find, if you have an awakened Kundalini, or perhaps an activated Kundalini, you will find more connection to that Kundalini energy by focusing on this area. Experiment with this. If you like this idea and you try this idea, write your experience in the comments down below. And as I'm saying this, also don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, like the video, and share it on social media and with your friends. But more importantly here, just focus your attention on this area, see what happens. Because everything softens, everything goes gentle. And then as that area allows the prana to flow into your body, the same happens within your body. So perhaps the sacred sexual energy has far less to do with your genitals and your sexuality than people try to say. And the feminine side and the masculine side. Because really the duality, and because men can have full body orgasms and ecstatic orgasms just as women can. And it takes them the same amount of time as it does that it takes women to get to those places, because we're not talking about ejaculation here. So perhaps this energy is nothing to do with dualistic programming. And it is just this openness, this flow. And all these exercises that you can do, well, you could say some of them were great. You might love them. You might not like others. Or perhaps, apart from obviously using the muscles in those areas, just like any muscles in your body, need to be worked, need to be trained, need to be kept strong. But that's a physical thing. By just paying attention to this area, become aware of what happens to the energy that flows up the front through the genitals, what happens in the lower chakras, what happens to the energy in the spine, what happens to the rest of the energy in your etheric body, and all the way out, once that energy flows up to your heart, what happens to all that energy that we call your personal space? What happens to it? Experiment with it. See what you think. Question everything. And just experiment and experience for yourself what you feel. Because we already know this about what people call the star chakra above the head. As above, so below, right? We could take this literally. Have a go. See what you think. Leave a comment about the experience. And I'm not just saying think about it for 2 minutes and get distracted. No, I'm saying concentrate on it. Keep your attention on that area for at least an hour a day for a week or a month and see what happens. And if some interesting changes go on, come back and share this video with your friends, with your family, with social media, so more people can start to think about this and start to feel it and become more connected. And understand that sacred sexual energy isn't perhaps so sexual after all. Sacred indeed.